And so she grabbed onto me and used me essentially as a ladder to climb out of the water. And when she did, I had not been prepared. And so I did not take a deep breath. And next thing you know, I was breathing in water, which turns out to be incredibly painful. And I was terrified and in a lot of pain. And then I was watching Rami climb up onto the shore and go and sit down. And I could see myself floating in the water.
I want to welcome everybody back to another episode of The Soul Inspired. Today we have Hillary Young with us. She has had a near-death experience. We're going to have a conversation around that and the things she's doing in her life and possibly any other experiences that have come up throughout her life. So first of all, thank you so much again, Hillary, for coming on to The Soul Inspired. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I love the name Soul Inspired. I will be borrowing that. That's brilliant.
Yeah, well, the entire premise of the show is to try to inspire others. And so these conversations, I think, are some of the biggest, right? Because I always say to people, if you break your leg, you go to a doctor. And if I want to find out a little bit of information about who we are and where we come from, I'll talk to people who've maybe touched it a little bit. And that's kind of why we go down the near-death experience route. But I usually go back to a little bit, and again, at this point, I don't know when the near-death experience happened yet. I tend to go backwards in time a little bit, find out a little bit about who you were as a child. So I always go to little Hillary, trying to get a little bit of personality behind who you are and maybe any faith that was in your life, just a little background on who you were.
Sure thing. So I was born to hippie parents who were very, very young. My mom was 20 and my father was 23. They'd known each other for 3 weeks when they found out they were pregnant with me. It was 1965 when my mom got pregnant with me, which makes me 29, don't argue. And my mother chose to keep me, but they had just set off on their life of being hippies, and they were not super inspired to change that strategy. So my parents were not terribly religious people, but they were for sure seekers. They were definitely looking for a connection with something greater than themselves. Unfortunately, in that era, a lot of that connection was sought through psychedelics. Be that what it may, I think, being a little kid, that was a little bit of a challenge to be around people that were under the influence of drugs like that as a kid. However, I can say when I was 7 years old, I was accidentally dosed with LSD. I was my parents had one of those old freezers. And I don't know if when you were a kid, they still had your freezer get iced over and you'd take a spoon and scrape all the ice into a cup out of the freezer and then pour juice on it. Okay, we were really poor, and that is called a hippie slushy. In any case, they had acid on vitamin C tablets in the freezer, and my spoon scraped one open. And next thing you know, at 7 years old, I spent about 3 hours in the bathtub watching little people dance on the ceiling. So if there's anything to the possibility that psychedelic drugs can open your mind, maybe that was part of what did it. I'm not sold on that idea, but it has been mentioned to me by others that maybe that was a good thing, not a bad thing. I'm grateful that I wasn't terrified. I was actually delighted by the little people dancing on the ceiling. So as far as spirituality, my parents were very open to it, and I was very lucky. My mom knew from the time I was very little that I seemed to be able to perceive things other people couldn't. For example, I would know the phone was going to ring and that it was going to be my grandmother. I don't know how come I could do that as a little kid. To this day, my intuition is probably a lot, I want to say better than many people, but I don't think that's true. What I think is true is I've learned to pay attention to my intuition and believe it more, especially as I've gotten older. So my father was a man who had a lot of demons in his life and a lot of struggle. So I was mostly raised by a single mom. And what is the best way to say this? The gifts that came with that were that I was forced to be independent and take care of my little sister. I learned to read a lot, and I got incredibly interested in all things that had anything to do with magic. as I think a lot of people who have a spiritual inclination want to believe that someday we're all going to get our powers if we just are good enough kids and wait long enough, right?
Right.
So when I was 10, I went to our local swimming hole with some friends. It was my friend Rami, my friend Erica, her brother Joseph, and then their sister Rami. Rami was developmentally delayed and a really big girl. And I was a fairly petite 10-year-old. And we were swimming in a swimming hole that gets dredged for gold on a regular basis. To this day, I think they still dredge it occasionally. But what would happen, it was a fairly small creek, and it would go, a rocky, sandy bottom where you could touch. And then these big machines would come and dredge it, and the whole bottom would drop out, which is fine if you can swim, which we could. But on this particular day, Erica and Joseph were goofing off with each other, and Joseph scared a crawdad, which I thought were the scariest, meanest creatures alive that were going to eat my toes. It shot backwards into me. I stepped backwards and knocked Rami, who could not swim, into one of the drop-offs. And so she grabbed onto me and used me essentially as a ladder to climb out of the water. And when she did, I had not been prepared. And so I did not take a deep breath. And next thing you know, I was breathing in water, which turns out to be incredibly painful. And I was terrified and in a lot of pain. And then I was watching Rami climb up onto the shore and go and sit down. And I could see myself floating in the water with my hair floating on top of the water. I was face down, and I had the most incredible sense of peace. You can't imagine. It was like all of a sudden I was separate but a part of the most incredible love and divine energy you can imagine. It's hard to even imagine. It was like everything was connected to each other, and I could see like this slight glow to everything from the sand to the insects in the air, to the trees, to the bees that I was terrified of, the yellow jackets that were walking around on the sand. I was connected to everything in such a way that I could never harm anything. And nothing that was connected to that energy and understood it could ever harm anything else either. It was the most comforting, joyous, beautiful thing that has ever happened in my life. I always say dying was the best thing that ever happened. And I was floating down the creek. She ran in and pulled me out, and she started CPR. Did not want to get back in my body more than I've never wanted something in my life. Like, I did not want to go back. I was so happy where I was. I wanted to stay right there, connected to divine love, with this understanding of how everything sort of was connected, with a clear perception that as I moved farther into this divinity that I was suddenly connected to, I was going to understand everything. Everything was going to make sense. This amazing experience I was having was going to do nothing but get better. And then suddenly I was coughing and gasping and trying to breathe, and everybody was crying and everybody was upset, and I was forced back in my body. And what I remember really clearly about it is when I say I was terrified of bees, like to this day, I do not like yellow jackets. I won't eat outside. But in the length of time it took to go get in the car, there was a yellow jacket right inside the window, right by my face. And I didn't have an ounce of fear for it. I just rolled down the window and let it fly away, which doesn't seem like a big deal. But when you're raised in the kind of chaotic, sort of crazy atmosphere I was as a kid, it inspires a lot of fear. I was afraid of everything, and you can't be afraid of your parents, right? You can't be afraid of your own father. So instead I was afraid of, dogs and yellow jackets and spiders and the dark and, just all of those things instead. And for that time when I still, even though I was corporeal again, I was back in my body, I could still feel that connection for quite some time after. I can't tell you how long it was, because it was years ago. And honestly, I don't remember. But I do know that I knew how connected I was to everything. I could feel that connection for a while, but I had been able to recognize that connection ever since. And the difference between me and a lot of people is that so many people are afraid to die. And I am 0% afraid of death. Quite frankly, I'd be delighted to die. It was amazing. It was beautiful. When my friends pass away, I'm never sad for them. I'm never afraid that they're gone forever because I know that they're not, right? Energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only change forms. And we are absolutely energy. And when you're outside of this body looking back, you can see the divine connection between everything. It's almost like a web or a tapestry, if you will. Like you can see the way things are connected. Mm-hmm. It's magnificent. It is not scary. It is beautiful. I don't think it's something anybody needs to rush into because we're all going to get there eventually. But it is definitely nothing to be afraid of. Nothing to be afraid of at all.
Wow. You when you were explaining everything there, I just wanted to say you had said that you had one little moment there where you froze, and I'm just going to go through this to make sure, just for the audience, anybody that noticed this. So you had jumped out of your body and you saw yourself in the water. And then you said you noticed there was kind of an outer glow or glowing from everything, right?
Yes.
Um, Between that point and when you took the breath back, I kind of missed some of that. So
Oh
yeah,
no.
it did. It kind of jumped out. But then when you came back talking about it, you kind of mentioned a few things. Were you feeling like you were being pulled towards anything?
No. So a lot of people's experience is they go through a tunnel or a bunch of people that have passed away meet them somewhere. None of that is what happened to me. My guess is the divine knew it wasn't my turn yet. I wasn't staying, which I guess is a good and bad thing, depending on the angle you're looking at it from. Um, what was true for me was simply that I could visually see through, I guess, energy is probably the best way to describe what I could see. It looks like divine light, like if you've ever done a meditation where you're focusing on divine light in any color and the way it shimmers, that is what the connectedness looks like. And it feels very much like a tapestry or a web, if you will. Everything is separate but a part of each other. Mm-hmm. And there's zero judgment. There's no anger. There's no shame. There's no negative that I could discern whatsoever. It's entirely just love and connectedness. It's powerful. It's beautiful. It's magical, and it's what I think everybody is sort of striving to find on this plane that is so elusive, because that divine love is something, once you've felt it, you never want to be away from it again. And my guess is at some level, because we all, I'm convinced, come from that space and then end up here in these bodies. That's part of what the divine suffering or the earthly suffering really is that is trying to get back to that connectedness to the divine. Because there's no way you wouldn't want to be connected to it once you felt it. Once you, I think that's why babies scream so loud when they're born. You gotta be kidding me.
Yeah.
I was doing
Well,
great.
I have a baby due in about 3 weeks, so
Oh,
there'll
congratulations.
probably be some screaming, and it makes me.
Yeah,
I'm always kind of like, oh, I'm sorry, but we
right,
needed you in this. We needed you to
right.
come here and help the
We're,
world. Um,
we're
but
so glad you're here.
yeah, this is amazing. So you're out of the body, and you're getting all the feels of what a lot of NDEs get when they go through the tunnel and they see their loved ones and all. So you were actually the way that you're describing, you had all the feels. You had the love feeling, there was no fear involved. It felt did it feel natural? Did it feel
Oh,
like a
yeah.
natural
It
feeling?
was the most natural thing. It felt more right to be there than it has ever felt to be here.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did the 3D around you, so the pool or where it was you were, did everything look the same outside of the glowing? Like, did it look still 3D from what you can remember? I know this is going back, but
Yeah, no, it looked 3D, but it looked crystal clear. So what you would have to focus harder, okay, so I'm an older woman. Things I would have to put my glasses on to see with a 200 magnification is how everything appeared. It's like everything, even though it was farther away, was that easy to see molecularly. It was incredible. It was just spectacular. It was so validating, doesn't sound like the right word, but somehow it is. It validates that we are so much more than just this body that we're trapped in. Like our souls are so much bigger than that. And part of the reason our souls are so much bigger than that is because it's not just us, it's us and then everything around us, which we are connected to much more powerfully than anybody really gets until they're no longer part of their body.
Did you, and I love that you mentioned that you could see things crystal clear. I like how you said that, kind of like putting on really good glasses or whatnot. Some people state that when they focus on something, it's like instant. So they'll focus on one part of the scene and they'll see it, they'll be right there. Or did anything like that happen, or were you just above the entire time?
So it's funny, I haven't thought about it in those terms, but I can say I remember looking at the tree and the tree becoming much more molecular is a good word to use. Like every single detail of the tree was suddenly so much more clear to me. And I hadn't thought about that, but you're right. When I looked at the tree was in crystal clear focus. And then as I looked over at the water, the ripples on the water were in crystal clear focus. The bugs getting across, the water skeeters going across the top of the water were magical. Like everything was just glowing and beautiful and a part of me. I don't know any other way to describe it, but it was so simultaneously unifying and liberating.
I haven't ever brought this up, and you're going to be the person I bring this up with because you mentioned earlier in your life you accidentally had I guess, the drug at 7 years old. You had this moment, right? This is just something that's coming from my own personal feeling, and I kind of want, I think, you know what, maybe you're the person that can clarify this a bit with me. So I talk to people every day who have these experiences, and they tell me some absolutely unbelievable experiences to the point where even when they're describing them, even I tend to have trouble completely understanding the experience because you're trying to explain something that's outside of this regular place, right? My studio,
Right.
your place, like my cup of water. This is just all my reality. I get up, I do my regular day-to-day thing. When someone explains to me that they're floating in the air and there's crystals coming out of things and there's lights and you're seeing this, to me, it sounds almost like a really crazy trip. So it sounds
Right.
like a really large like drug. And I, for instance, don't really enjoy that. Like I don't like the feeling of being completely out of control in colors. And so how would you decipher the difference between like a trip, like from a drug, let's say, and what you experienced in the other realm?
I can say that in my experiences, I'm not gonna lie, there's been a couple. I've been sober for 7 years, but um, hallucinogens have never been a thing of mine in my adult life. My father was a crazy person, and he gave me more than one deliberately, even after that experience as a kid. But what I can tell you is, under the influence of um, hallucinogens, I still feel myself separate from whatever it is I'm witnessing. I've never felt connected. I've often been afraid. I've not ever had the immersion, the total and complete immersion into euphoria, divine love, and connectedness that I had when I was not in my body, when I
Oh,
was dead, if you will. My heart had stopped and I was floating face down the river. That was the most connected to myself, the universe, frankly, you, never met you, but I was connected to everything. There was nothing that wasn't a part of me. And that is not even close to anything that I ever felt under the experience of any drug.
was there any similarity between the two?
Maybe in that, like under the influence of mushrooms, things get brighter, maybe a little clearer.
Hmm.
So I can say I don't know if there's some, I can't imagine that a man-made drug is going to do anything really good for anybody. Sorry, I just don't buy it.
Right.
But I suspect the divine Gus, as I like to call it, Gus, which stands for Great Universal Spirit, I suspect Gus has come up with some stuff that people could take on this earth that might help them feel that connection to the divine.
Mhm.
I don't know that we've figured out precisely how to use it, but I'm not a yogi and I'm not, a spiritual master. So who knows? Maybe somebody else has come up with something. I don't discount anything. Um,
Mhm.
I don't know.
No, I
It's
appreciate
possible.
you answering that. I've had a little bit of this conversation. I actually don't dig down that rabbit hole very often, but I've had a personal conclusion a little bit different than some other people or a different look. And it's that I believe, and this is going to actually bounce over to one of the questions I'm going to ask you. And sometimes I wonder if, and I don't condone drugs at all. I don't do them. I don't, I don't, but I think that there are ones that particularly could be out there that maybe turn off our our 3D grounding. So meaning here we are, we're stuck in this, we're in this moment, in this experience, and perhaps there are things people can take that almost separate that a little bit. So you get a glimpse
Mhm,
of what else is out there, and then you come back.
mhm.
And it could be, that could be what's happening. Instead of it being the drug going in and it's firing off random neurons in your brain and it's creating the what it looks like. That's just a feeling I have. I could be
Sure.
completely wrong. This is entertainment purposes only. I have no
Right,
idea,
exactly. Yeah,
no
we don't
idea,
know.
but it somewhat makes sense because if you're under something like that, you're not fully intact. You're not fully here. So I would think that there could be some disconnections, if you will, that might open up some different floodgates. Going to the question I was going to ask you, and maybe you do talk about this in your book or not, I don't know. Um, but this might be just a personal question to see if you know, but or if you feel. Why do you think if a place like that exists, the afterlife, the other realms, why is it we come here and we forget?
I think our connection to the divine is really powerful, really strong, and we are still separate but yet a part of, or at least that's how I felt when I was outside of my body. I feel like the only way to really learn is to experience. And from what I have seen from the most intelligent people that I've ever known, and that's the main intelligence I know, is really intelligent people are always striving to get more information and to learn more, right?
Mhm.
So I wonder if the divine consciousness, Gus, if you will, is just trying to collect more data, more information, more experience by separating us from itself briefly so that we could go through the various different life experience that we have. We may not be able to feel that our connection to the divine the way I did when I wasn't corporeal, but I'm confident that the divine can feel its connection to us, whether we know it's
Mm,
there or not. So perhaps what's happening is the divine is expanding through our consciousness.
mhm.
That's the best answer I have for that because I don't know either.
Yeah.
It's the only thing I have made it really clear in my book that I formally decline reincarnation. I do not
Mhm.
want to come back and do this again.
Oh,
I am not interested. I would very much like to just get back to being a part of this magnificent love, this divine intelligence, this incredible sense of connectedness. I think the lack of connectedness to the divine is what makes us all feel lonely at some level, no matter how in love we are, no matter how great our family is, no matter how connected to other humans we are, or
Mhm.
dogs, pets, whatever. I feel like all of us have a sense of separation that we're trying to fill a bit of a void inside of us. And I think it is that. I think it is our connection to the divine is what we're all craving. And
Yeah.
the reason so many of us are being called right now to talk about our connection, to tell our stories, is because it's a pretty harsh time in the world right now.
Mhm.
And I think since it's difficult to have that divine connection at the at the level you have when you're not corporeal, the next best thing we can do is connect through each other in our intention to connect higher to the divine.
So you're not, so when you said you're not, I like how you said you're formally declining a reincarnation. Excuse me, you're not formally declining the idea that reincarnation exists, but that you know you do not want to participate in that. Is this correct?
Oh yeah, it probably exists because I'll be so pissed if it does. I'm gonna be so mad if they're like, nope, sorry, you got to go back. I'm gonna be like, oh. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm sure it exists just because nothing would make me madder.
I I've always questioned reincarnation until I started really talking and digging in with a lot of NDEs and often certain ones who were given a choice, not every time, but they would
Okay.
say, well, you can come here, you can come here, but you will have to go back and you will have to do do the things you learn the things you didn't learn, and they will it may not be as easy. Like you got through it this far so good, you may not have as easy of a time. And so they have to make that decision at the time. So just because that is a question that is presented in the other this other place, it's hard for me not to believe there is that option. So and I think some of us come here, I've always felt this way. As I started kind of looking into reincarnation, my mother would talk about it to me and stuff. The first feeling I would always have, well, one of the funny things is that when I was a little kid, I used to say to my mom, I used to be native, and I had two little pink girls, and I would tell her this all the time. I was like 4 years old when I would tell her this, and she's like, where did this come from? And that I was this warrior, and I was and something had happened, and so I would explain this stuff to her, and so that's the first thing. The other thing is I always had this feeling like I've done it a lot. And it's like this was a kind of a victory lap, if that makes
Right.
sense. So I think some of us are on those victory laps for some higher purpose. I don't know what that would be, but then again, maybe not. Maybe people do go back. But um, I do like your answer with what you said, and it is hard to know why we forget. I guess it's almost like we have an amnesia when we come here that there is this other place. Maybe we will get to a point in our evolution that we do start to have a connection. I think we're already getting there. Like if you look at the way that we've progressed, whether
Sure.
it's through meditation or through different forms of, or even just stories like this might trigger someone's memories to come online, or
Right.
um, so I think we're heading in a different direction. When you talk about it, and I say this to some people too, and they talk about, oh, it's so beautiful over there, and it felt so good, and it was full of love, and I go, okay, but you were just like I look at life like there's all these things we can do. We can get a job. We can go to, we can do this. It just sounds so interesting to live a life. Like, how can that be interesting? But I think if you haven't actually experienced it, it's hard to really put your head around.
Sure. And also, what I can say with pretty solid confidence is that that was the very beginning of what that journey would have been like for me.
Mm,
You understand what I mean? I was still pretty tethered to here. Like
right.
somebody could just do some CPR and I was sucked right back. So I think that journey would have been much bigger
So that was
than
like an infancy moment. You were just kind
right.
of breaking into this other life or the afterlife. And then,
Yes.
and that's probably why so many people tell me about, well, they have these moments like you had where it's just out. Wow, what is this? Coming back in. Then there's
Right.
the ones who go through the tunnel. And then there's the ones who actually break right through and they wake up
Right.
with a sheet over their head. They go, whoa,
Right.
you know. So that makes sense. So did you have a feeling at any time that there was more to what
So
really
I,
existed
yeah,
for
I had a,
you?
I mean, there was so much more. That's sort of the whole thing is you're connected to this and you're connected to everything. So when you just think about everything, if I know that I'm connected to a grain of sand on the beach and it is as much an individual as I am, it may not be animate in the sense that you and I know, but it is just as important a part of this plan as anything else, which is a tough concept to wrap your mind around, right? But
Mhm.
it just was what was true. And we're in a galaxy and part of a universe. Like just that is a pretty big place. So what was the more to come has to be spectacular. Um, And my guess is, my hope is, my experience was that that profound love would never abandon me. That profound sense of security and safety was so profoundly intrinsic to who we are fundamentally, individually, and as a collection, that it was going to be nothing but an amazing adventure, no matter what it played out to be. It was going to be cool.
And that I love when you say that that love that's connected to us would never abandon you. And I believe that this is where it's tricky here on Earth is that that love still hasn't abandoned us. It's still there, but somehow we have, like I say, this amnesia of tapping in and we're searching. What do you do in your day that can help you stay connected into that?
So I don't get out of bed without meditating.
Mm.
I spend, and it's not even that, I spend 20 minutes every morning doing a meditation. These days, my favorite meditation to do is I imagine there is a beam of divine light that comes down through my forehead and all the way down to the bottom of my toes, top of my head, sorry, the crown of my, down to the bottoms of my toes. And then I imagine that light expanding out into a bubble. And then here's the part that's going to make you think I'm crazy, because I might be a little crazy. I then imagine whoever I'm having a struggle with, because this is life and struggles happen. So sometimes it's my mother, God bless her, I love her, or sometimes it's my husband, but I imagine them inside the bubble with me. And then I imagine that divine light filling them up the same way it's filling me up. And I just hug them and kiss them on top of the head and tell them how much I love them and try to find myself connected to the divine love that I'm attempting to connect to through that light. And then when I'm done with my meditation, I just let them go, send them on their way.
Wow.
In my experience, every time I do that, whatever my beef with whoever it is magically disappears. I don't know why it happens, and I don't care. These days, there's a lot of political tension in the world, and so there's some politicians that I find challenging. So what I do with that is I imagine that politician as a child, because I cannot imagine wrapping my arms around that politician as an adult. So instead, I imagine the kid in them that didn't get the love they needed, and I pour that divine light and all of the love I can pour into them, and then I let them go. That I feel like I am pretty powerless on the world of politics as a hairdresser who works in Corte Madera. But that divine light is super powerful and capable of far more than I am. So if I make that much of an effort and 5 other people make that much of an effort, there is no way to know what the ripple effect of that would be. And I promise that if you are having a hard time with anybody in your life and you do that practice 2 weeks in a row every morning for 5 minutes, I guarantee you something will shift and you won't even know why. But it'll be because you did that practice.
Wow. I love that. It's a way to, and that takes a lot of self-discipline, mainly because, we're human and we have emotions and we have things that we got to deal with internally. But I think if you turn it into a practice like brushing your teeth, it
That's
can
it.
become something it's just, what's the worst thing that can happen? It doesn't work. What's the best thing that can happen? It works and it helps.
Hey.
It helps, right? So, I'm the same way. I don't do it in meditation, but if something gets me really upset about someone, I send forgiveness and love their way. And it's
Mhm.
just that's all I do. I just say I I'm sending them forgiveness and love for being the way they are because something got them to that place. And so, and I'm doing this internally, and I know certain people would be like, "Why would you do that? Like, can you believe they did that to you?" And I'd be like, "It doesn't matter. I have to
Mhm.
do it." Um, and somehow it helps me too. So it's part of it. When you had the experience before, obviously at some point you did write a book. And I'm
Mhm.
wondering if between the time you had the experience and the time you wrote the book, did you have more intuitive gifts in your life throughout your life? Like, did anything kind of come online that were just always showing up?
So, yes, one of the gifts I have that I'm actually learning more now. So, there's more to my story. It's in my book. I talk about my childhood, what it was like to be raised by hippies. My mom was a fierce, strong, powerful woman who worked really hard. she's amazing. My father was a major challenge. And one of the gifts that I've been given is an ability to connect with people who've crossed over. I'm not a medium per se. I don't, until very recently, I did not get messages for other people. These days I do. It's very strange, but it's been one of the greatest gifts I have. I don't grieve the same way other people do because the people that have passed away stop by and say hi.
Yeah.
So it's harder to be sad for them being gone. And even for myself, if I know they're not really gone. My first love told me he was going to play practical jokes on me when he was dying of cancer. And he does everything from turn my hair dryer on when I'm standing 3 feet away from it, to my husband is an atheist who does not believe in any of this stuff, but has been converted because one night I crawled into bed and fell soundly asleep. And then the light on my side of the bed turned on. And so my husband had to turn it off. And just as he was about to fall asleep, the light turned back on again. So he had to get up and turn it off. And then on a third occasion, it did it the same night. In the space of about 10 minutes, light kept turning back on and off. And he was like, all right, okay, yeah, that's weird. Like, I told you.
Wow.
It's great to be able to know people are there. My ex-mother-in-law, when she passed away, showed up to me in a dream. So I knew she was gone. When I woke up the next morning, she came and told me she forgave me because I was not terribly nice to her because I was young and angry. I feel really lucky. My intuition is incredibly powerful. I get real clear intuition on whether or not I can trust people, which is super helpful in life. Also a gift I think most people have, they choose to ignore. It's one of the things I've discovered to be true about spiritual gifts is that the more attention and belief you're willing to give them, the more they will show up for you. It's kind of like trusting in Gus, the great universal spirit, to support and take care of you. The more you do that, Gus is a show off, man. Gus will do so many cool things if you're just willing to let it happen. I've had moment after moment that, of course, in my book, I should have read up to remind myself, like, what are your best stories of cool stuff that's happened? One of them was being really, really worried about money in 2020 when everything was happening. And I'm a hairdresser and I couldn't work. And I was in terror. And for some reason, they would not give me a PPP loan, which made no sense because everybody else got one, but I couldn't get one, even though I own a hair salon. But all of a sudden, I kept getting messages from the SBA that I was qualified for a loan. And I'm like, well, I'm going to starve if I don't, so I better. So I signed up for this loan. I only asked for $25,000 and ultimately ended up that they made a mistake and put $96,000 in my account. Now I still have to pay that money back and I'm fine with it, whatever. First, I was afraid because I thought, well, what if I can't afford that payment? And then I remembered that if Gus didn't know I was going to be fine and I could handle it, Gus would not have made sure that they made that epic mistake and put that money in my account. So it turned out to be the money I needed to write not one, but 2 different books. It was what got me through all of COVID, made sure that my business didn't go under. I mean, it was a magic and a gift. And that's just one of many ways. There was a day where I was dieting. I'd lost 16 pounds. I was so proud of myself. And the COVID hit and they closed my salon down over the summer. And then it was Christmas time, my busiest time of the year. I'm in California and they decided to shut my business down again. And I was just furious about it because we'd already proven that we could keep people safe. I had these plexiglass dividers I was putting up in my salon. We were all wearing PPE. I mean, we were doing everything we could. And I was frustrated. I like to eat when I'm stressed. And so I wake up, I do my meditation, and then I say, okay, Gus, just to be clear, I don't want to get fat again, but also I don't even want to shop for food that's good for me. I just want to eat stuff that tastes good. I need help.
Right.
So that night, my husband comes home from work and he says, your groceries are on the steps. And I said, I didn't order any groceries. And he said, well, they're on the steps. And I go outside and there are 5 partially full bags of groceries on my front porch with a note with a number on it, but no name or address or anything. So I leave them out on the porch. I come inside, I call Whole Foods, which is where the bags came from. I let them know what happened. And they said, well, Amazon delivers those. We have no way to track them. We have no idea whose they were. So I guess Merry Christmas.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, well, so I put on my coat. I go knock on all my neighbors' doors and I ask them, did you guys order any groceries? Nobody did. So I waited a little while thinking, well, somebody will come looking for their groceries. And then I realized there might be ice cream in the bag. So I better get them out. So I bring the groceries in. There's no ice cream. What there is fresh blackberries, fresh raspberries, salmon, ground beef, a gallon of water. I was out of peppercorns. There was a pepper mill. There was like 5 bags of some skinny gluten-free person was crying because they didn't get their groceries. But it was the healthiest choices I could have made. And the people who got them, I guess, would get a refund. That's what they said at Whole Foods. So essentially, I got 5 bags of food that was good for me just upon making a request of, hey, I can't do this by myself. And then I didn't have to. So
Wow.
that
Did
was
you, at the time when that happened, did you recall the,
oh yeah, I bragged about it. I was on Facebook going, you guys weren't going to believe what
yeah,
happened.
yeah.
My husband was blown away. Like even he, Mr. doesn't want to believe any of this stuff.
Hmm.
Like, I don't know why stuff like this happens to you. I had, again, it's another story in my book, but I bought my husband an Apple Watch for Christmas, and it was again, 2020 was a big year for me. I think because there was so much tension, but also because I had so much time to meditate. What else could I do besides bake, learn to decorate cakes, and meditate during 2020? So I got him a watch for Christmas, and I went to pick it up at the mall, and the mall was open. And I'd been cooped up for a long time. And so I wanted to go shop. And the voice in my head said so clearly, Hillary, you're going to lose your watch. And I was like, I am a fully grown adult person. I have been shopping my whole life without losing my stuff. I'm not going to lose my watch. And I went into Nordstrom and I was trying on earrings, and this woman came too close to me, and it's 6 feet, lady, because it's COVID and you should stay back. And I got all irritated and I left and came home. And my husband was putting Christmas tree lights on the house, and so I couldn't bring his watch in because I didn't want him to see. And finally, when he went upstairs to take a shower, I went out to the car to get my watch, and I'd lost it. It was not in my car. And
Oh,
so I called Nordstrom and said, did anybody turn in my watch? And they said, hold on, ma'am, let me go check the safe. They went and checked the safe, and it was not in. And I called every day for 10 days, and it was not in there. Every morning they say the same thing. Hold on, ma'am, let me go check the safe. And then it wasn't there.
wow.
So a few months later, I was part of a prayer group, basically. And in this group, they were doing two-way prayer, where you do your prayer to Gus, and then write a response to yourself as if Gus is answering the question. And I was supposed to be doing an intentions list. So I intended to lose weight, and I intended to fight less with my husband. The message I got back from Gus was that I should be kinder to my husband because he doesn't understand Gus the way that I would like to think I do. And so I need to be patient with him, and that I should be kind to myself about my weight because my creativity with food is one of the ways Gus expresses himself through me. And I thought, what a great message that your creativity is one of the ways the divine expresses itself through you. So now I know that whenever I get down, what I need to do is create something, either sculpt something, or, I like to cook, but sculpt or write or do something creative, because that is how I can connect with the divine. For people that I'm sure your music probably really connects you to the divine.
Yes.
In any case, so I read this story to the people in my group. I read what Gus has said to me, and somebody says, you have a great relationship with Gus. And I said, yeah, if it was that good, he'd bring my watch back. And everybody laughed because they'd all heard me beat myself up. If I had just listened to my intuition, which was screaming at me,
Yeah.
I would never have lost that watch. Instead, I had to buy 2 watches, and I was very frustrated. The next morning, I woke up and my phone was ringing and it was Nordstrom. And I thought they were going to try to sell me something. And I answered, and she said, did you lose something at Nordstrom? And I said, oh, yeah, but that was like 2.5 months ago. And she said, well, can you tell me what it was? And I said, yeah, it was an Apple Watch and a charger. And she said, okay, well, it's here. You can come pick it up. And I said, what? How did it get there? And she said, I don't know, ma'am. We just found it in the safe this morning.
Wow. And this was the following day after
No, this
the,
was 2.5 months later. And yes, 2.5 months later was the conversation with my friends. And it was the next morning after we had that conversation that
right.
the watch showed up. So
Wow.
Gus can do
Wow.
amazing stuff. I have story after story. And because I'm a
Yeah.
hairdresser, my clients all hear the story. So I have plenty of witnesses that'll
Well, it's
tell you.
fascinating. Now you say, so these are in this book. Can we see the book? I think you have it with you. You said,
This is my book.
and,
It's
and
called
Gus, and
Trusting
Gus
Gus,
stands for,
Great Universal Spirit.
right. So trusting the great universal spirit. One thing that I say a lot is having awareness of our thoughts, having awareness of the things that are around us, and like that changes everything when you start to become aware of your thoughts and you know what I mean? That's part of it. But I like just having trust that everything, I've always had this, it's funny, before we started talking today, um, because I said I'm an optimist or whatnot, right? Like I'm someone who always looks at the brighter side of things. But you said, no, that's you trusting that it's all going to work out. That's you just follow that. I like that even better, because when I say, no, I'm an optimist that things are going to work out, well, that means there's some people who are more a pessimist, and I'm thinking about that, and I'm on the other side of that. And I would rather just feel like, no, I feel like this is going to work itself out. Like this is supposed to happen this way. I have conversations all the time about the world and where we're at right now. How you see kids all the time swiping on their phones, people on their phones. There's a lot of things happening. But the trust I have inside of me says that sometimes we need to see the dark to understand the light.
That's right.
We're all just like a toddler's learning all these things. We're toddlers. We're learning. We can't all learn at the same pace, and we're all seeing this as a whole, right? And we're all
Right.
witnessing things. And I think there's always an ultimate reason for everything happening. I do
Mhm.
believe we have free will. And
Mhm.
so it's almost like how deep do we want to have scars? That kind of thing. And I think as we learn, and hopefully we learn quicker, that we can do things the right way. But I do have, I always just have the trust that everything's gonna be fine. And uh, people see that in me, and they're always like, "How do you see it that way?" But it's like I don't know. I don't think it's just a wishful thinking. It's a
It's
feeling.
not. Yeah.
So yeah.
Um, last year, my salon flooded. I got a call on a Tuesday. I'm on my way to work. My salon is flooded. And I get there, and the nail salon across the hall left a pedicure bowl on overnight. So there's 2 inches deep of water all over my floor. The property manager's there handling it. I can't work. I have to cancel all my clients. I'm looking at my floor that I'd had put in 20 years before. I'd bought a really good quality floor, and they told me if it ever flooded, they could just pull it out, replace the mat underneath, and it'd all go back into shape. And that was 20 years ago, so okay. But there was nothing I could do that day. And so instead, I grabbed a handful of my books and I went to downtown Santa Fe and I just started giving them to all the hairdressers in town. I went to every hair salon, just gave a book because hairdressers have big mouths. And if they like something, they're going to tell their clients. And it's a great way to
Mm.
advertise. Just a tip for you guys. So I did actually go into a little bit of panic afterwards because it meant I was going to have to redo my floor. There was water in the walls, like it was a whole big thing that was going to be mold. And the manager or the owner of the building decided somehow he didn't have to pay for any of it. It was all going to be on me. I had a deductible, the nails. It was like this whole thing. And I finally started to freak. And then I went, wait a minute, trust Gus. It's going to be fine. I said to my coworkers, I'm just going to trust Gus that it's going to be fine. And 2 weeks later, after the floor had dried out, my floor went completely back to normal. Like nothing had ever happened to it. They'd managed to get the walls dry. There was no smell of mold. Like somehow, maybe because it was all clean water, I don't know. But magically, everything went back to normal. I didn't have to do a single thing. And then a month later, I come home. I was having a day that I was really struggling. There were a few members of my family that were very, very angry that I wrote this book. And they did not like having family secrets told. There's a lot that I tell in this story
Mm.
that is personal, but it's my life and I get to share the details. Other people's lives were involved, and I do understand that. But in any case, it was a difficult day. It was right before the holidays. I was feeling sad. I come home and there is a message from Copperfield's Books, which is a bookstore here that has, it's a chain with about 9 different stores in it, letting me know that they'd sent me a message earlier. They didn't know why it hadn't come through, but they decided, because I dropped my book off at Copperfield's that day, just on a whim, thinking they would never want it, that they were going to carry my book in their store. So if my salon had not flooded that day, I never would have gone to downtown Santa Fe to give everybody my books, looked
Mhm.
at a bookstore and been like, oh, I'll just try it, and ended up with my book in a chain of bookstores.
Wow.
You just got to try. And then everything at my salon was fine. Didn't cost me a dime, except for that
Yeah.
one day I missed work. And turns out it was worth it.
The other
So,
thing is that you're doing is you then look at it as divine. You look at the,
right,
the phone call of the, oh, some people, unfortunately, if this is why awareness is big to me, if we're too busy, even those signs that come to us, we keep ignoring them. We keep
right.
ignoring them. We keep ignoring them. So I think it's really important for people to really be aware of what's going on around you because there's some amazing things that can happen. And this is why it's the same thing with, I always say to people, yes, people have NDEs, they go the other side and it's beautiful and everything here. But I really do think there are some beautiful things in this world. I think we're here for a reason. We've come to do this. So we can find goodness in it and do these great things. That's what we're about. Your book, do you have like a website or anything, or is your
I
book
do.
on?
You can, yeah, you can find the book on Amazon right now, but you can also reach out to me on trustinggus.com, and you can buy a book from me there. You can't buy it. I don't have a link on the website to buy it, but if you send me an email, we can work it out. I think the most important thing, like I said, with once you learn to start trusting that the universe has your back and vocalizing, asking what you need in the way of help, two things are going to be true. One is you're either going to get it, you're going to get a yes or a not yet, or I've got something better for you. Those are the three answers the universe is going to give you. They're never going to tell you no, they just are going to tell you not that. Two different
Mm,
things. The more of that you do, the more of it you're willing to see when the things start happening. Again, universe is a show off. It will start wanting to wave flags and get your attention and start doing more and more amazing things. Like, I got groceries. I got my watch back. Like,
yeah.
stuff that happens in my life is truly remarkable. People are blown away. One of the weirdest things that happens to me is I win money on lottery tickets all the time because I only buy them when I look down and something in my intuition says, yeah, you should get that lottery ticket.
Right.
And then I win. It's very weird.
Wow.
I'm so grateful for it though. And again, I'm grateful that I have my connection to the divine and my faith in the divine because it just gets being validated. I would imagine if I believed that the universe was out to get me and things never go my way, I would find a way to make that true.
Mm.
But instead, I believe the universe is out to lift me up and support me, and things are always going my way, whether I know it or not. Even when it looks like my salon is flooding and it's a terrible day,
Yeah.
it's actually a day off that I get to go do something that's going to bring me great joy in the moment I most need a giant lift. So, you just have to, it's all in perspective.
I love that. And it's something that I continue to try to work with too. A lot of people will think that if something great is coming or they ask for something, that they think something negative is going to be attached to that.
Right.
Like there's just going to be, okay, I just need, I want to get a raise. Okay, but if I get a raise, that money is evil. So that means something else is going to happen. And you
Right.
start going in this play. And that's programming. That's from
Right.
being programmed that way. You just say, no, that's not my reality anymore. My
Right.
reality is that good things are coming my way. And
That's right.
that's it. That's as simple as it is. And it's going to show up in the form that it's going to show up. And then you trust it, right?
Right.
And then you go from there. So that I'm learning that still myself because I'm not perfect. My thoughts are always kind of going all over the place. So I'm always trying to break that down. I always ask everyone this question, and it's in every single episode, okay? So you've had a near-death experience. You've had this experience going over there and even if it was a brief moment, and seeing that you are bigger than yourself. This is going to be a double question for you, if that's okay. One of the questions is, was there a part of you that still felt like you?
Yeah.
Like your
definitely.
personality, like you, because we all have our funny personality pieces of us. Did you still feel that over there? That's the
Yeah,
first question.
that's why I always say I was connected but still separate. I was somehow a part of this divine love, this divine connection, this divine wisdom that I could tell I was only going to get more expanded into, if you will, but I could still feel myself as a separate entity. I wonder if part of the going further into that journey would have meant to somehow be more absorbed into that, but I don't know. But I can tell you that whatever, I would have been fine being absorbed into it. It was fine. It wants to swallow me up, no problem. Take me, eat me
Yeah.
whole. It's all good because it was amazing.
And
So
see, and it's reactions like that that really are quite incredible. And I hope that people who have maybe family or friends or people they've lost recently or all these kinds of things, or maybe you're someone who's just not well themselves and things like that, to look at it like, you know, that should give some comfort that you're even willing to say something like that, that
right,
you could feel the love so much that you knew your existence was still intact. You still felt like you would become something that's even greater than what you are, and you were willing to move on if you had had the choice, kind of thing. So
sure.
that says a lot. I still question, it's the last question I'll ask you, and we kind of touched on it with the asking about forgetting or why we're forgetful when we come here about the afterlife and everything. But if it's all beauty over there, if everything's so fantastic, if it's a beautiful place, what is our main reason why we incarnate here?
I think the reason we're incarnating here is because intelligence always wants to expand itself. And I believe Gus, the divine, is the most expansive intelligence out there. And the way it continues to grow its own wisdom, its own experience, is through us having our own unique experience on this earth. Because we are, every single thing on this planet is unique unto itself, right? So whatever its experience is, nothing else can have. And if the divine is as connected to us as it felt when I was on the other side, every experience we have, it experiences and becomes that much more profound
Wow.
for every one of us that has a life on this earth, as a life in this universe or every other universe. Like I think it's way of growing and learning. And we are just blessed to get to be a piece of that.
I love that because what it means is that every single moment we have and the choices we make is part of the growth of the universe, of whatever is
Entire
bigger than us. Everything's a
yeah.
piece of everything. So there's not one person in this world that's more special than you. We're all part of this
Right.
entire play or this entire place. You know,
That's
because a lot of people look at that way. They look at celebrities, they look at people who are more wealthy, or they look at up to all these people they maybe think have it better. But
right.
we're all helping the universal
Right. And
expansion.
I'll take it one step farther for you, just because I think this may bring some people who need it comfort. One of the hardest things about being a person, in my experience, is the self judgment that gets put on us. And a lot of people's fear of death is that they're going to be judged. So, a couple things are true. One is that I am 100% sure there is not some like divine maitre d' at the door of heaven turning away people because they didn't believe a certain way. Like that's 100% not happening, I promise. And part of the reason for that is so if the divine has every single experience with us, the divine therefore understands why we made every single choice we made and the information we had leading up to that. And it loves us the same way, more powerfully even than we love our own children. There is literally nothing that child could ever do that would make you not love it. May piss you off, may think you want to, spank it, may, whatever. The divine is so much higher of a consciousness than that. It has no interest in punishment, no interest in anything but loving you. That is all it ever does. So anybody that's afraid of being judged, you don't have to worry. I promise there is zero judgment in divine love. There just isn't any. understands every choice you made, understands if you could have made a different choice, doesn't care, loves you 100% for who you are, what you've done, does not matter. It's your divine spark of light, is it ultimately its spark of light. And there is nothing you can ever do to make it not want you, period.
Wow. I appreciate everything you've said today, and I think this is a beautiful conversation. I want to thank you for coming on,
Thank you for
and
having me.
I'm sure the Soul Inspired family will, enjoy the conversation, and it's one of the reasons why I started this. I try to talk to everyone in person. I can't obviously answer all questions all the time, but if comments come on, I'm always happy to go through them, and I'm sure I'll share the links to everything that goes through. But I always ask the audience to please continue to like, share, and subscribe to the Soul Inspired. If this is an episode that spoke to you or you think it'll speak to someone, please share it. Um,
Please.
I would also encourage anyone that was interested in Hillary's story to go and check out the trustinggus.com. I like the name, by the way, Trusting Gus. It just kind of like floats. Um,
Thank you.
trustinggus.com. And that's where you can find out more information on you and your books and things like that, right? So, but I
Yes.
really do appreciate you coming on today. Thank you so
Oh, I'm
much.
so delighted I met you. I'm so excited for you to be a daddy. You're going to be a great daddy, Joe.
Oh,
Don't you
thank you.
worry, you got this. It's not going to be easy, and you're going to have nights where you can't sleep, and you're going to have moments where you wonder if you're doing it all right. And the answer is no, you're not doing it all right. You're going to make mistakes, and that's okay. Because
Mhm.
your only thing you really have to do with this baby is love it with all your heart and do your best. And you will raise a person who is as kind and good as you are. And you're a pretty good guy, honey.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate that.
So